But I will say that one of the most harmful things in this whole Bible version controversy is this Lucifer versus Daystar debate. And there's one guy that has weighed in on this controversy. He wrote a book. Let me see. Let's see now. I don't know if it's going to let me. Okay. The guy's name is Jack McElroy. This is his profile picture. He wrote a book called Which Bible Would Jesus Use? I'm not going to rib his book hard. I'm not going to roast him. I don't want to make him cry. It may end up happening by the end of this stream anyways. He may be crying because he's laughing so hard. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. So tonight we're going to be, I'm not going to be mean. Like I said, I don't want to be mean, but I may end up being a little bit, a little bit abrasive at some points because it's just so bad. It's dishonest. It's not responsible with any of the information regarding this whole thing. Somebody already laughed at it, so that's great. We'll be sharing some of my own memes. Now Jack calls these graphics memes that he's making. I don't see them as memes. Technically, I suppose you could call them a meme because what is it? A meme. I'm not sure how you define a meme in the modern sense. But I think from what I remember, these infographics that he creates would fall under the subject of meme. So let's see. This is the first one. I might see if I can't. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to flip through the three real quick. There's the first one. Here's the second one. And then the third one, which gets a little longer. See, it's more narrow. So he takes his infographic down a little further, tries to get a little more detailed, but it's just such a problem. And yeah, just there's an entire spectrum of people surrounding just the dealing with this controversy. It's a lot to cover, and I do want to cover it because there's nobody that is out there challenging these things that I am aware of. Some people will mention them briefly. They'll make one response to the arguments, and they'll kind of leave it at that. But there's nobody that's dealing with the claims of the specific authors. There are still a lot of people that put a lot of confidence in different authors that are very irresponsible, very double standard about the information that they present, people that are ignoring facts that they are well aware of, but they are keeping from their readers. It's just a really big mess. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to go through all of these different authors with you guys. And yeah, I appreciate the few of you that do show up when we make these streams. I know they've been a little sporadic recently. I do want to try to get back to things more regularly, but like I said earlier, we've been doing more so research at this point. Research and writing and composing and cross-referencing and what have you. There hasn't been a lot of time for making content or doing the streams. And also, it's probably nice for you guys to have a little bit of a break from the Lucifer talk anyways. So, let's see. Maybe let me see if instead of bringing up the infographics like I have them saved, let's save that maybe for the memes. When we get down to my own, let me see if I can get the zoom in ability that is afforded me by Google Drive, because I do have these saved in Google Drive as well. Go to Window, and we're going to do the Chrome, not StreamYard only. And we're going to share. Okay. I would love to be able to deal with the video clips that people have done, but YouTube, trying to review YouTube videos on StreamYard for me has always been very, very sketch, and it hasn't liked me to do that. Right now it's having a litter of kittens just trying to share my screen. Okay, we're getting there. All right, split view makes it easier to multitask. Show me how. Remind me later. That's a Chrome notification. I don't know if StreamYard does that. So, alrighty, so we can zoom right on in. There we go. So this is the first meme. This was published on the 20th of this month, February 2026. Jack McElroy uploaded it to his page, his Facebook page. I don't know if this is in his book, which is a collection of these infographics. It may be, but I'm not positive. Now, those of you that are listening to this strictly on audio, you will be missing the graphics in what we'll be reading, but I will be reading all of it. So audio will probably still serve you well enough. So the title of this one is called NIV Blows Cross-Reference Makes Lucifer Jesus. Now, do you guys see already at the outset how serious the accusation is? King James only people, almost every King James only person that I could mention says that the NIV, specifically, they like the NIV for some reason. The NIV makes Satan out to be Jesus Christ. Very serious accusation, but it is full of holes. It is not true, and we're going to look at that a little bit tonight. Not sure what the graphic of the finger stuck in the mousetrap is all about, but I don't know. So here we go. The comparison chart. King James Bible. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Okay, we've all seen that. I believe the original King James, if I'm not mistaken, had a question mark instead of an exclamation mark there. New International Version. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. Now, we have all been taught our entire lives that Isaiah 14:12, beginning in this verse or the verse before, switches from talking about an earthly king who died to talking about a fallen angel. I will say right now, there is no evidence for that teaching whatsoever. I don't care if John MacArthur teaches it. I don't care if your pastor teaches it. I don't care if your seminary professor teaches it. Almost everybody teaches this, and there's no evidence for Satan being within 100 miles of this passage that I've been able to find whatsoever. I still have a few questions about a few things, but did you ever notice how in the context, he says that he will sit in the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. That's already telling you that this person wants to sit in Jerusalem. So it can't be talking about Satan. It's talking about two people. It's proposed to be talking about two people. Let me say it that way. Some people say it's the Antichrist because the Antichrist wants to sit in Jerusalem or something like this. But the thing is that it's talking about a king of Babylon that has died and that is in Isaiah's day and is literally talking about this guy. It doesn't seem to quite match a particular king of Babylon. It may match the guy between Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar. I don't know. Belshazzar's dad. I'm not quite sure. There's not a lot of information on him that I've found so far. But there's only I think one or two people that want to say that it's the Antichrist just because it doesn't specifically refer to a particular king of Babylon. A lot of people will say Nebuchadnezzar, some will say Belshazzar, but those are just the ones that we know about from the Bible. And I would like to see maybe a little evidence that it's talking about the guy in between. So if you guys have any information on that, please let me know. I'm sorry, I'm already getting bogged down a little bit in here. But just long short of that, this verse is not without context. Read from the first verse of Isaiah 13 all the way to the end of Isaiah 14. And you'll see that all of that is talking about an earthly king that died, not a fallen angel. And people want to also make this a secondary spiritual interpretation that it's talking about Satan in some way. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. The only evidence is that it's a very closely held Christian tradition. And that's it. And it's predominantly a Catholic tradition, honestly. The Reformers rejected the idea unanimously. You know, they were ad fontes and they wanted to go back to the sources and everything. But yeah, Martin Luther rejected that idea. John Calvin rejected that idea. If you look at the notes of the Reformation Bibles, like the Geneva Bible, the Matthew's Bible, the even the Douay-Rheims Bible, they all recognize that it's that it's talking about the earthly king of Babylon. The two Protestant ones don't even mention Satan, and then the Douay-Rheims says that it can be interpreted spiritually as, you know, Satan. So your modern King James only person doesn't agree with the Matthew's Bible, doesn't agree with the Geneva Bible on those 2 points, or the King James Bibles that have reproduced the Geneva notes. They agree with the Douay-Rheims note, which I think is kind of ironic. So here is where we start accusing the NIV. This is where we start accusing the NIV of the most preposterous thing ever in history, folks. Sorry, I don't have the Pringle hair. So, Revelation 22:16. I, Jesus, have set mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am blah, 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 the bright and morning star. I, Jesus, have set my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am blah, 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 the bright morning star. Capitalized as well. I think it might also capitalize like root and offspring of David and such. Different phrases that are referring to deity are often capitalized in modern speech. The important part is that King James only people see, and I saw this for years, the chapter that Gail Ripplinger wrote about this idea was one of the ones that I actually reproduced as an audiobook with her permission. It's not available anymore on YouTube, but it was. And I never even questioned this idea. Not even once. I just read it and was, freaked out by it. Never did my own research, just like most of the people that believe her to this day. Just like most of the people that believe people like Jack McElroy to this day. They don't do their own research, which is sad. I hope that you will. I hope that you'll challenge the status quo. I hope that you'll think outside the box. I hope that you'll make your own informed decision based on the information that you find, and that you won't just follow the sheep. Okay? They want to say that by taking out the word Lucifer and replacing it with morning star, they did a horrible, evil thing, and they made it out to be Jesus now, because only Jesus is called the morning star. Unless you're talking about like John Wycliffe. I guess they make an exception for him. Oh, and also maybe the angels in Job. We don't talk about that either. They almost never talk about it. They'll refer to it in passing, and that's just about it. It's really sad. I, Jesus, have set my angel. Okay. Lucifer is not... Wait. Lucifer is son of the morning. Jesus is the morning star in the King James Bible. Okay, guess what? It's also in the NIV. Son of the dawn. Son of the morning. Why does it say that? Because the morning star is considered to be the son of the dawn, because it comes out into the sky at dawn. So that's why it's rises early in the morning, like John Wycliffe's Bible says. O Lucifer, which rises early. It's talking about the planet Venus. And when you have O Lucifer, guess what? The word Lucifer is the Latin word for the morning star. Problem solved. The thing is the King James Bible and their translators wrote the word Lucifer. They transliterated. That means that they took the letters from the word and made them English letters, and they didn't translate it. They translated Lucifer. They transliterated Lucifer as Lucifer into English. But the problem is that church history has a lot of baggage, and Lucifer pretty much means Satan today, but it didn't back then. And now morning star is seen as a heresy because people have lost that connection that Lucifer only means the morning star. And that's easy to prove. If you guys have any questions about that, please drop them down in the comments, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Lucifer is son of the morning. Jesus is the morning star in the King James Bible. He's also the day star. And I think that Jack McElroy is going to see this in a little bit here, but the King James Bible note on Isaiah 14:12 says, or O day star. King James Bible translators acknowledge that Lucifer means day star. And at least two of the King James translators, many of them preached sermons where they basically equated Lucifer as Satan. It's a, like I said, closely held Christian tradition. But there are two King James translators, George Abbott and Lancelot Andrews, the premier King James translator, like Gail says. And both of them have, I don't remember if they were sermons that were written out or what they were. I'm pretty sure they were sermons that were written. And they both identify Lucifer as the planet Venus. And that's where I got a little bit more of an education. I got to learn what a mace bearer was. That was pretty cool. So both Jesus and Lucifer are called morning star in the NIV. How horribly evil. They're also both called lions. What's the big deal? But guess what? The whole problem goes away when you realize that how have you fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn, is not talking about an angel. It's talking about a king of Babylon who's being poetically compared to the planet Venus rising in the morning sky and then falling out of the sky. So basically, how have you fallen out of the sky, which heaven right there means the sky. Oh, morning star. In other words, you are so grand and amazing. You are like the morning star, which the Babylonian kings apparently also compared themselves to. They would call themselves the morning star. Or like if you've seen the Prince of Egypt, Pharaoh calls himself the morning and the evening star. It's the same planet, the planet Venus. Oh, morning star, son of the dawn. The distinction is clear in the King James Bible. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people that still preach this passage referring to Satan. There are a lot of people that do ask, okay, why is it morning star? There are some people that make that connection. There's some cults that make that connection, and there's King James only people that make that connection, and there's some Christians that make that connection. But the problem is that since Satan is not in the passage whatsoever, there is no parallel. There is no place for confusion. The confusion, I think, arises because we still teach that Satan is in that passage when he's not. The thing is that the king of Babylon in his glory is being compared because he's of his brightness is being compared to the planet Venus, and Christ himself is comparing himself to the planet Venus. And I believe it would have been Peter. I believe he was comparing the prophecies about Christ, or the fulfillment of the prophecies about Christ, or the second coming of Christ, as the day star in 2 Peter 1:19. And this is just because of the brightness. It's not an exclusive title for Christ. Okay, let's see. How can you trust a Bible that misses the difference between your Savior and Lucifer? Oh my goodness, how is that so horrible? Well, that's interesting, because there's a lot of foreign language Bibles, especially in the Romance languages, which do exactly the same thing and have been doing so forever. Because in their languages, the word for Lucifer and the word for day star and the name for morning star and the name for the planet Venus are all still the same word. Don't let people make you doubt your Bible, right? Yeah, people are pushing this stuff. Every King James only author that I can find deals with this controversy in some way, shape, or form. And they're all wrong. Dead wrong. Learn more. Get the book, Which Bible Would Jesus Use? The Bible Version Controversy, Explained and Resolved by Jack McElroy. I don't think he actually talks about the Lucifer controversy in his book. Here's the third meme. Should we take a commercial break? Here, let me show you something real quick. So this is a screen capture of the post where he made these statements. So this is exactly the same. This one is taken from the third infographic. It's exactly the same as the first one. Copy and paste, the big picture, and basically an advertisement for his book, and that's it. The second infographic, he gets a little wordy, and we'll see that in a little bit. What's the devil's name? Well, let me tell you, it's not Lucifer. If you look at the Latin Vulgate, Lucifer, Luciferum. If you look at the Romanian Bible today and other Bibles, the word Lucifer is not the devil's name. It's never used exclusively as the devil's name, except in the King James Bible. Because as far as I'm aware, the King James Bible is... No. Yeah. Actually, I think most English Bibles before the King James Bible also had Lucifer in this passage. As far as I'm aware, all of them did. I have said before, John Wycliffe may have had it in there twice, but I've recently come across information that he may have only also used it once, but I need to make sure. The word Lucifer may have been added by a later editor, who is trying to clarify his use of the word day star in Job 38:32. We'll see. I still have to try to work my way through all of the Middle English written in an almost unreadable script. Whew, that's a lot of fun. What's the devil's name? Quick search results. Oh, let's search the word Lucifer in the NIV. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. The NIV doesn't have the word Lucifer in it, because the word Lucifer carries the wrong meaning in English today. If they're going to translate the word Hallel from Hebrew, which has always been considered to be the planet Venus, if you're going to translate that word, translate it into English that people can understand. The King James Bible, I believe at this point, needs to be updated. Because if you read that passage and you see the word Lucifer, in the modern mind, the only definition of the word Lucifer is Satan. We have completely lost the primary definition of 1611, which was the planet Venus. And the primary definition of Noah Webster's day, which was the planet Venus, the morning star, the day star. This controversy gets so convoluted. Jack McElroy, Steven Anderson, Bible Highlighter, a couple other guys have tried, Jardis Bow have tried to get some good information, have tried to do their due diligence, and have ended up running into a point where they just go anywhere but actually talk about what's actually happening there. And they tie themselves in knots. They all try to attack it from a different direction. Each of them ends up not addressing the elephant standing in the room. It's just ridiculous. English Standard Version, ESV. Sorry, no results for Lucifer. They took out Lucifer? Now, this is the problem with this. If it's being called a meme, it's trying to make an argument based on no information whatsoever. A meme will at least express a truth in a relatable way. This isn't doing that. It's just falling short. The King James Bible reveals the devil's name. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground as this weak in the nations? Well, guess what? It's talking about a king of Babylon that kept conquering nations. Yeah. Here we go. This is how you're supposed to define the word Lucifer. You're not supposed to define it how the Bible defines it. You're not supposed to define it how history defines it. You're supposed to define it based on rockers. Rockers know his name. They say, we worship Lucifer, and stuff like this. Because somebody's going to screen capture that and be like, Joseph's a Satanist. Yep. So rockers know his name. Oh, yeah, because they got their definition from popular English Christian culture. Yeah, they did. Take them over to Romania and have them talking about Lucifer. And most of the Romanians will go, oh, yeah, Jesus. Jesus is the morning star. He's the light of the world. Yeah. Satanists know his name. Oh, yeah, they call him Lucifer. And guess what? They get their mythos from Christian tradition, which is not true, at least based on that passage. Like King James acknowledged in his demonology, Satan doesn't deserve the name Lucifer. It's talking about the day star. And it should be a term for Christ. Freemasons know his name. Oh, yeah, they talk about Lucifer. Oh, they do, huh? In what sense? Mostly they talk about him in the poetic sense. And why are you basing your definition off of rockers and Satanists and Freemasons anyhow? Oh, well, yeah, they know who they worship, like my friend David Daniels has said. With all due respect, David, that is irresponsible and misleading. Freemasons know. Okay, gotcha. We're going to talk about the secret teachings of all ages with the premier Masonic scholar, Manly P. Hall. We're going to talk about that. Let me see if I can find it quickly. I might not be able to. Here it is. Because of these qualities, this is on page 240. Because of these qualities, a number of names have been given to it. What? To it by the ancients, the planet Venus. We'll start at the beginning of the paragraph. Isaac Meyer has stated the Pythagoreans held that each star was a world having its own atmosphere with an immense extent surrounding it of ether. That is, see a book called The Kabbalah. That's all in italics. I don't know if that's in the Kabbalah per se, but the Kabbalah proper. But it might be. The disciples of Pythagoras also highly revered the planet Venus because it was the only bright planet and the only planet bright enough to cast a shadow. In poetry, this is something that this is kind of in the weeds, but in poetry, there are a couple of places that the OED lists when it builds its definition. I think one of them might be leaning toward defining it as the sun, which some people are dishonest about that. BH, you know who you are. We'll talk more. In poetry, it'll describe the planet Venus. It'll say day star, and it'll mention its beams. Now, people, when they read that a lot of the time, especially today, they'll think beams. Oh, okay, like moonbeams or sunbeams. Okay, so it's probably talking about the sun, day star. That makes sense. The only place that I've seen so far, the most is a very, very recent quote that actually makes the day star the sun, which I think is a misnomer, complete misnomer. But it was like in the 1960s or 1980s, something like this. It clearly says the day star, that is the sun, basically. But it's not. But the problem is that King James only people get their arguments so convoluted and complicated and silly that their arguments rely heavily upon day star and bright morning star, meaning the sun, and morning star, meaning the planet Venus, maybe, and then Lucifer still has to be Satan somehow. They get really, really twisted up, and we'll look more at those soon. As the morning star, Venus is visible before sunrise. As the evening star, it shines forth immediately after sunset. Because of these qualities, a number of names have been given to it by the ancients. Being visible in the sky at sunset, it was called Vesper, as it arose before the sun. It was called the false. Sorry, we're talking about the false light here, and my light runs out of battery. I knew that was going to happen. Turn it off for right now. I don't have a cable to put into it to make it charge again. So we'll just leave it there for now. I think we probably have enough light. Is this going to help or hurt? It's not lighting up my face any better. It'll be okay. We'll survive somehow. Because of this relation to the, hang on a second. Being visible in the sky after sunset. Okay. It was called the false light, the star of the morning, or Lucifer, which means light bearer. Because of this relation to the sun, the planet was also referred to as Venus, Astarte, Aphrodite, Isis, and the mother of the gods. So when you hear about people sacrificing to the Queen of Heaven, that's who they're talking about. Either might be talking about the moon, but it's also associated with the planet Venus. Yeah, that's probably good for right now. But how did he define Lucifer right there? The seething energies of Lucifer. Yeah, okay. Is he talking about illumination, about learning, about the light bringer, about these different things? It seems like it. Freemasons, huh? Okay. Madame Blavatsky, another person who says, no, Lucifer is not Satan. Clearly, she says that. She says that in the first article that she wrote for Lucifer magazine. Because it's a Christian misnomer. It's an urban legend. There's actually a book that goes into detail on this. called Urban Legends of the Old Testament. I got it recently for Christmas. Thank you to my wife. Cicero knew his name. Dante knew his name. Milton knew his name. Oh, they did? That's interesting. Too bad that they were incorrect. They were wrong. And most Christians throughout history have compared Lucifer to Satan or made them synonymous. And yeah, it's been a long-standing Christian tradition ever since Origen, who King James only people hate. They're arguing for Origen's interpretation of this passage, though. Kind of funny, kind of ironic. But it's just that. It's a closely held Christian tradition that doesn't hold water. Does your Bible know his name? I see we've got one person watching right now. It's kind of discouraging to me. This is of real significance, guys. I wouldn't be pouring this much time and energy into this controversy if it wasn't something that made a difference. People like Jack McElroy, King James only authors, every King James only author that I can find for the most part, has something that calls other Christians' Bibles satanic and evil and makes Christians hate other Christians and makes Christians hate other people's Bibles based on their inability to understand this passage or deal with the facts of history that surround this word. This isn't boring stuff, at least not to me. It's not unimportant stuff. It is enormous in its impact. Go read some of the comments on these posts that Jack McElroy made. All these people going, yeah, that's why I burned my NIV, because it calls Satan Jesus. This is why I never use that evil Bible. It's extremely important. It's made a lot of King James only converts. It's made a lot of cult converts, because cults are able to take that connection between Morning Star and Day Star and say, oh, look, this Bible is saying that Satan is Jesus. You never noticed that before, did you? And they can prey on ignorant, gullible Christians in colleges across America with this verse, with these verses. And it's important for us to teach our kids the truth that this idea about Satan being in this passage is a closely held Christian tradition that has a rich history of misunderstanding the Bible. But it is primarily directed toward the king of Babylon who got killed, and he's being compared to the planet Venus falling out of the sky. And I'm not alone in that interpretation. Not at all. We could go on all night about people that are responsible with their scholarship. Look at the passage and go, dude, this isn't talking about Satan. Now, after all of that, after Jack McElroy makes a meme where he's using rockers and Satanists and Freemasons and Catholic authors and Milton, I don't know much about Cicero, but I know about Dante. After he uses that, and after he uses this search function to try to make what's altogether a pretty weak meme meme infographic to the last one, this one he focused more on the text of his post than he did on the actual graphic. Now he learned something new. He learned something that throws a wrench in his ideas. Look at this. Lucifer or Morning Star in Isaiah 14:12. Look at the footnote in the King James Bible. It says, or O Day Star, SDAY-S, which looks like an F, because that's how they did it back then, TARRE. And those two little lines right over there, those two little lines, generally speaking, will indicate where you could have an alternate translation. O Lucifer could also be or O Daystar. Translation over here in the blue, O Lucifer, aka Satan! Exclamation mark. Footnote, O Daystar, Hebrew translation. Isn't that interesting? Jack McElroy is acknowledging that the translation of Hebrew into English is O Daystar. But wait a second. He had a calf a second ago about the NIV saying Daystar, or not Daystar, Morning Star. Is he going to have a calf about the ESV or the New American Standard, which say Daystar? Is he going to have a calf about Lancelot Andrews and George Abbott and King James himself and John Calvin and John Rogers of the Matthew's Bible and all the Geneva Bible translators and everybody else and all the commentators, John Gill, Adam Clark? Is he going to have a bird about them saying that this passage is talking about the morning star? No. This is where Jack McElroy tries to rearrange what he's saying. And hang around for a little bit. We're going to get to some, I think they're funny memes. I've been sharing them to a few different people. I think they turned out pretty well. I'm not going to say that I'm proud of them per se. I guess I could say that though. I don't want to be overly humble. I don't want to be painfully. So this is going to be interesting. Let's check this out. See what he says. The King James Bible translators. Hang on a second. I just got to show you the one. This is Jack McElroy. Please, come on. Here we go. This is Jack McElroy working on his memes, his Isaiah 14:12 memes, after he finds out that the King James Bible originally had or O Daystar in the margin. I'm going to have to do this on the phone. It's just the lag. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, here we go. No, I don't want to reload the site. Cancel. All right. The KJV translators were fully aware of the literal rendering of the Hebrew word Hallel. Well, isn't that interesting? He's saying that the literal rendering of the Hebrew is the day star. Funny, because if you look that up in all the different sources that I've looked them up in, day star and morning star are synonymous. The King James translators were fully aware that the literal rendering of the Hebrew word Hallel, as documented in the margin by the margin note in the 1611 King James Bible, where they say day star. Isn't that interesting? Because it's not the literal rendering. If you wanted to do a literal rendering, then it would be shining one or something along those lines. Or glorious, or illustrious one. It would not be day star, because day and star, as Gail Ripplinger and many other people have pointed out, are not actually in a passage. So it would not be the literal rendering, Jack. The King James Bible translators were fully aware of the literal rendering of the Hebrew word Hallel as documented by the marginal note of the 1611 King James Bible, where they say, he's got to rearrange his meme so hard right now. Day star, he capitalizes the S. It's not capitalized. The F looking S is not a capitalized S. And there's a hyphen, which he missed. Not going to be too critical on that, but Jack, be careful. You can tell he made this in a hurry. Not morning star. Oh, so day star and morning star are different somehow. That's interesting. How is that? How are they different? Are they referring to different things? Even the ESV uses day star. Yeah, and guess what? King James only people roast the ESV because you can cross-reference that to 2 Peter 1:19, where it talks about the day star rising in your hearts. But then that makes the King James note heresy, doesn't it? Even the ESV uses day star. In Isaiah 14:12, how have you fallen from heaven, O day star, not morning star, as in the NIV. Oh, it'd be horrible if it said morning star, wouldn't it? Guess what? They're exactly the same thing. The planet Venus is called the day star, and it's also called the morning star. Dude. So the Hebrew word Hallel could be translated day star. So the Hebrew word Hallel could be translated as day star or morning star as one big word. Yes, because they're synonymous. What's your point, Jack? Yes, Hallel could be translated both ways. It could be translated as planet Venus. It could be translated as Lucifer in the proper context, which the Bible is not, because people are reading the Bible today and understanding it to be about Satan simply because the word Lucifer is in that verse. And because of closely held Christian tradition. Moreover, to render Hallel as Lucifer as a proper name is linguistically legitimate because Hebrew sometimes transforms descriptive titles into personal identifiers where the context points to specific supernatural figures like Isaiah 14:12 or 14 clearly does. It clearly does. Examples, Pharaoh means great house, and Satan means adversary, and Abaddon means destruction, and Belial means worthlessness. Okay. Did you throw that in there because you're trying to make Hallel Lucifer? It's not even okay. Okay. Let's be clear here. Pharaoh is transliterated from the Egyptian great house. Satan, Satanus, words like that, transliterated word adversary. For adversary, that's Hebrew, it's Greek, adversary. Abaddon, Greek, for destruction. Belial, Greek, worthlessness, if I'm remembering correctly. Lucifer, not Greek. Lucifer, not Hebrew. Why aren't we saying Hallel, capital H, Jack? Morning star in Isaiah 14 gives Jesus' title to a fallen being because morning star is a title. Okay, that's interesting. Why aren't you accusing the King James Bible note of doing exactly the same thing? Because the prophecies about Christ's second coming are called the day star in 2 Peter. Morning star. Oh, how evil. Guess what? The German Bible of Martin Luther says Morgenstern. Was he a Satanist too, Jack? In Isaiah 14:12, Jesus is given it gives Jesus' title to a fallen being, a very serious doctrinal problem. Very serious doctrinal problem here. Guys, this is doctrinal. No, it's not. You're having a hard time understanding this passage, and it's very, very sad. And you're misconstruing it, and you're going to keep misconstruing it because you're not going to let this argument that you've been using against the NIV for so long, you're not going to print a retraction because you're not going to do independent research on this. This is probably the last infographic that Jack is ever going to make about the Lucifer controversy. But I guarantee you he's not going to make one where he's like, I was wrong. Jesus, and Jack McElroy, if you're watching this, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about this controversy. I would love to talk to you about it virtually. If you show up on my doorstep tomorrow, I want to take you to lunch. And the last thing I want to talk about is this controversy. The last thing I want to talk about is anything related to the King James issue. The last thing I want to talk about is the Lucifer, Morning Star, Day Star, whatever controversy. The absolute last thing. But if you want to talk about it, that is okay. I would love to discuss it with you in more detail. I, Jesus, have set mine angel. I am the bright and morning star. Oh, the NIV says bright and morning star. And guess what? It capitalizes it. Lowercase here, for those of you that want to make that distinction. Those of you that loop the knot that way when you go and twist yourself up. Lucifer is son of the morning. Jesus is the morning star in the King James. Oh, guess what? In the ESV, and you were just saying it was the literal thing, ESV, day star. Oh, that's okay because the King James note says that. Well, guess what? The King James note and the ESV must be heretical then because the prophecies about Christ's second coming are called a day star in 2 Peter 1:19. We're not going to talk about that, are we? Jack. Both Jesus and Lucifer are called morning star in the NIV. Evil Bible. Yep, evil thing. That's interesting. He takes this half of it to go, oh, shoot. I didn't realize that note was there. I'm going to say things to make the King James Bible be okay. It's fine. And then I'm going to double down on what I said in the last two memes and still not tell you the truth. People are relying on books like Which Bible Would Jesus Use? And Bible Version Secrets Exposed, and authors like Jack McElroy, and authors like Jack Mormon, and authors like David Daniels, and speakers like Kent Hovind. All these guys, they're relying on these people for accurate information, and they're saying it because they're saying that every English Bible on the market today, except the King James Bible, the New King James Bible, are all heretical because they have day star or morning star in this passage. Unless you're Jack McElroy and you get all cross-eyed because of the King James note, which most people don't even acknowledge. So at least thank you for acknowledging it, Jack. Most people don't get that far. Good job. I don't think David Daniels even got that far, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right. Let me see if I can bring... Okay, I've got to wait for it to load on my laptop. Is it going to happen? It's on my phone. Is it going to happen on my laptop one day? There we go. All right, so this is a screen capture of the note that he put on top of his second meme. Whoa! Look at all those logos. That's pretty cool. And they're still duplicating somewhere in the vast distance. That's pretty cool. Okay. Author Jack McElroy. Top 3 reasons I believe God intended Lucifer in Isaiah 14. So he's not going to be Brandon Peterson and say, yep, the reason why they did Lucifer in this passage is because they were inspired to do so. Yep, that's the real reason why they did that. All right, well, anyways, the first reason, Isaiah 14, goes far beyond a human king. It describes ascent into heaven. It does, poetically referring to a king that was pushing against God. Yeah. This is the problem. People don't realize this passage is literally saying that it's poetic. You will take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. The whole thing is hyperbole. And this king is vaunting himself against the defender of Israel, Yahweh. Which, sorry, Jehovah is a misnomer as well. We can talk about that some other time. Isaiah 14 goes far beyond a human king. It describes ascent into heaven, exaltation above God's stars. Interesting. And an attempt to be like the Most High. That points to a supernatural rebellion behind Babylon, not just political satire. That's exactly what Origen said. You're going to credit him? Lucifer, light bearer, that's how the word's constructed, Jack. It doesn't mean light bearer. It means morning star or dawn star. It does not mean light bearer. It means one that bears the light, but that's because it's referring to the planet Venus, which came before the sun. Like Lancelot Andrewes famously said, the planet Venus is the mace bearer to the sun. It goes before the sun. Lucifer preserves an important distinction, a fallen being who sought God's throne versus Christ, a true morning star who possesses it. Okay. So are you saying that somebody who is not God, that is called a morning star, is trying to be blasphemous? We're going to talk about John Wycliffe now. And by the way, Jack, when the Latin Vulgate and the Old Latin were written, and they used the word Lucifer and Luciferum, they used it in Isaiah 14:12, and they used it in all sorts of other passages too. Talking about stars and talking about the morning and the dawn. And even about Christ in 2 Peter 1:19. The Jerome's Latin Vulgate used Lucifer. Some Old Latin used Lucifer. Others used a more literal wording that is like basically in Latin it is day and it is star. But they used a few other phrases as well, which were the same basic thing. But guess what? It's not that cut and dry. It's not just Lucifer equals Satan. That's what you think today, because about the last 150 years, it's been the primary definition of the word Lucifer. But it's not the actual definition. And it certainly is not the primary definition in 1611. Using the same English title for both blurs that contrast. Well, how about if we all just teach the truth? That Satan's not in 100 miles of the passage, not in 100 miles. That it's talking about a fallen king of Babylon that got killed because he exalted himself against God. And him in his glory is being compared to the planet Venus. Christ in his glory is comparing himself to the planet Venus. It's not that hard to figure out. And it's pretty simple, and you don't need the conspiracies. You don't need the Satan wrote the NIV rhetoric when you know the truth. 3, the KJV didn't ignore... Can you see my cursor? No, you can't see my cursor. That's sad. Yeah, you can. Oh, well. 3. The KJV didn't ignore Hebrew. He's obviously, right now, he's dealing with somebody that commented on his previous post. So he started a little mini series of 3 posts where he made little graphics for each of them. And I think mostly his main one where he makes his main argument is the first one. The second one's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and the last one was just thrown together based on a little bit of information that he found, and he's probably not going to dig any deeper. If you are, Jack, and you're digging deeper on this controversy and you're trying to find out for yourself and do your due diligence, more power to you. I'd be more than happy to help you out with whatever sources I have. But I doubt that that's what's happening. You're probably just going to keep doubling down on the same tired, fallacious, dishonest argument that every other King James only person is using because the OGs used it, so I can use it too. The KJV didn't ignore Hebrew. It followed long-standing English usage from earlier Hebrew Bibles that translated Isaiah 14 as a proper referent. A proper referent to what? The planet Venus. That's theology and not ignorance. Yep. So fun. Matthew's Bible, why did they use the word Lucifer? Because if you read their marginal note, they defined Lucifer as the day star, the morning star, the star that goes before the sun, the planet Venus. Same thing in the Geneva Bible. It was the primary definition going back into the early days of English. It became associated with Satan because they believed Satan was being compared to the planet Venus in Isaiah 14. We have lost that distinction today. Today, using Lucifer, continuing to use Lucifer in that passage is theologically destructive because it makes you think, it forces you to think that Satan is the only possible interpretation of that passage when it is a secondary traditional interpretation. It's not even the literal rendering. It's not even the literal reading of that passage. It forces you to believe that a secondary interpretation must be absolute fact, and that's sad, and it doesn't need to happen. I believe that if Noah Webster were alive today, in a time where that definition that he provided has shifted, his primary definition was the planet Venus for the word Lucifer. And it shifted since then. If he was alive today, he'd be beating the same drum as I am right now. Because it's making people misconstrue scripture, and that is extremely important. Bottom line, the debate isn't about Latin versus Hebrew. Interesting. It's whether Isaiah 14 reveals a cosmic fall behind the king of Babylon and every other king, apparently. A cosmic fall behind the king. What are you even talking about? That's an exegetical issue, not a dictionary one. Okay, well, that's interesting. Because King James acknowledged the passage is about Satan. But he said that he doesn't deserve the title Lucifer. Because Lucifer is taken poetically or figuratively from the day star. So you can have Satan in the passage and still have day star, which is the old term, the more traditional term for the morning star. Morning star, as I understand it, is a little more contemporary. Isaiah 14, hang on. Top 3 reasons I believe God did not intend morning star. Isaiah 14 describes a being who falls through pride after seeking to ascend into heaven and to be like the Most High. Revelation 22 presents Christ as the one who already reigns as the morning star. This is just getting convoluted, dude. It could be so much simpler. Using the same English title for both collapses the deliberate biblical contrast between a fallen aspirant and the rightful king. The context of Isaiah 14 is judgment, downfall, and humiliation, not redemption and glory. Morning star elsewhere in Scripture carries positive messianic meaning. Applying that same phrase to a rebel being introduces theological ambiguity that the King James Bible avoided by preserving a distinct referent, Lucifer. Dude, guess what? If the English word hadn't flipped and we lost the primary definition of the word Lucifer, that was the primary definition all the way up until the mid-1800s, and the secondary definition took over, and the secondary interpretation of this passage took over, if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't be writing this. Because we would all know that Lucifer means the planet Venus. Applying that same phrase, okay. Scripture consistently preserves spiritual identity through naming Lucifer light bearer. It captures the irony of a created being which once reflected divine light but fell through pride. Oh, okay, that's interesting because now you're acknowledging that Lucifer means that it reflects light. The planet Venus. Thank you. I don't know if you realize that's what you did there. Translating it generically as morning star. Oh, evil translation. Day star, good translation. Morning star, bad translation. Difference? Me don't know. Scripture consistently translating it generically as morning star removes that identity marker and flattens the passage into mere poetry. Okay, so if we translated it as day star, what would you have to say about 2 Peter 1:19, Jack? I'd be interested to hear what you'd have to say about that. The issue isn't Latin versus Hebrew. He already said that. It's whether Isaiah 14 reveals a cosmic fallen being behind the king of Babylon. You already said that. If it does, the distinction that fallen light bearer from Christ is not optional. The distinction. Then distinguishing that fallen light bearer from Christ is not optional. It's doctrinally necessary. Okay. That's why we all just need to take a step back and realize that we're defending an interpretation, a closely held tradition as the primary definition, the primary facts behind Isaiah 14. That is not the case. Let me see if I can't. Yeah, if I was trying to load Facebook pages right now to show you guys these things, I'd be up a creek without a paddle. Dan Hafley made a good comment. He's along the lines that I am, but only along the lines because he's done some research, and he acknowledges that there are ancient hymns in Latin which refer to Christ as Lucifer because they're calling him the morning star. Same thing, like I mentioned already, in Romanian. And then I also made a comment on that. I don't know if it ever actually posted. Right now, I don't know if I want to go through all of that. If you guys want me to, though, just let me know. I'm going to go through a couple of memes, and if you guys want me to read my reply to one of his memes, one of his infographics, sorry. I know Jonathan Burris really does not like calling them memes, and I agree. They do a disservice. That using that term to apply to those things is doing a disservice to memes. If you're interested in that, or if you want to hear my brief response along with what the McClintock Strong Cyclopedia says, it is most revealing. We might do that. We shall see. I do want to show you real quick, though, if it loads. This is a little bit of a sneak peek. It's coming soon. It is going to be my paper on Lucifer. It hasn't loaded yet. Probably never will. But I'm going to read you a couple of things. The Matthew's Bible note. I love how this note puts it. 1537. It says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, thou fair morning child? Hast thou gotten a fall even to the ground, thou, and notwithstanding didst subdue the people?" Marginal note. He compareth the death of Nebuchadnezzar to the falling of Lucifer, the morning star. Evil blasphemy, right, Jack? Which he calleth the child of the morning, because it appeareth only in the morning. This is why it's called the morning star. You'll see the same thing, but they'll call it the evening star or Hesperus later on. The meaning is, no such thing ought to have happened unto thee, that in earth was like... Hang on. No wonder you guys can't see it. Jack's thing is over it still. Maybe it'll hide eventually. Let's see, back to where we were. The meaning is, no such thing ought to have happened unto thee, that in earth was like the morning star, which no man can take out of heaven, talking about the sky. And thou that wast so mighty that thou destroyest what people thou wouldest. We're right here, by the way, just in case you want to try to zoom in on that. Let me try to make it a little bigger for you. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? It's going to zoom right in, and we're going to be looking at like 3 letters. An enormous font point size. It's just not. It's probably because it's connected to my phone. Let me try this instead. There we go. And unto whom it was a pastime to overthrow nations, hast received such measure as thou broughtest. Such a like thing is there in Ezekiel 28 against King Cyrus. I love what John Calvin said about it too. He, Isaiah, employs an elegant metaphor by comparing him to Lucifer. Dismiss. By comparing him to Lucifer, and calls him the son of the dawn, and that on account of his splendor and brightness, with which he shone above others. And I put in a little note, the planet Venus is the only star besides the sun that can be so bright that it can cast a shadow. End of my note. The exposition of this passage, which some have given as if it referred to Satan, has arisen from ignorance. For the context plainly shows that these statements must be understood in reference to the king of the Babylonians. But when passages of scripture are taken up at random and no attention is paid to the context, we need not wonder that mistakes of this kind frequently arise. Yet it was an instance of very gross ignorance to imagine that Lucifer was the king of devils and that the prophet gave him this name. But as these inventions have no probability whatever, let us pass by them as useless fables. That would be a good introduction to a few of the memes I made, like this one. Nope, that's the wrong one. That's about Heather McDonald. And yeah, Kathy O'Brien was right. This is the one I wanted. Lucifer is the king of Babylon compared to the planet Venus, not Satan. Changed my mind. And I think I had another one. I had another John Calvin one. Here we go. Lucifer is not Satan, John Calvin. Follow me for more Calvinism. Oh, nothing like it. Geneva Bible note. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, and cast down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Now, this is where we get into real dishonesty, especially when it comes to people like Will Kinney. He makes an enormous article going on and on and on about all these older translations. Wow, look at them. They all had Lucifer just like the King James did. So it's not a mistranslation. But then it doesn't come into play when we start making accusations. Because if it did, we would find out the Geneva Bible translators didn't think it was Satan at all. And they realized that Lucifer is not a proper name for Satan. It's a proper name for something else. Thou that thought thyself most glorious, and as it were placed in the heaven for the morning star that goes before the sun. Evil blasphemy, right, Jack? Is called Lucifer, to whom Nebuchadnezzar is compared. The Douay-Rheims Catholic Bible, translated from the Latin Vulgate, 1582. Isaiah 14:12, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, who didst rise in the morning. It's not talking about something shimmering in the early hours. Excuse me. Had a dewdrop in my vocal cords there. Who didst rise in the morning? How art thou fallen from heaven? How art thou fallen to the earth, which didst weaken the nations? Marginal note. O Lucifer. O day star. The Douay-Rheims Catholic Bible says the same thing. All this, according to the letter, is spoken of the king of Babylon. It may also be applied in a spiritual sense to Lucifer, the prince of devils, who was created a bright angel but fell by pride and rebellion against God. And in 2 Peter 1:19, we have a more firm prophetical word, whereunto you do well to attend, as to a light that shineth in a dark place until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. King James's demonology. By John in the Revelation, the old tempter is called Satan, the prince of all the evil angels. And last, to wit, Lucifer is but by allegory taken from the day star, so named in diverse places in Scripture because of his excellence. I mean the prince of them in his creation before his fall. King James Bible translator George Abbott, 1613. And so it is also, which we find in St. Gregory, that this word, talking about 2 Peter 1:19, is a planet or a wandering star, Venus, which unto some is Lucifer, a bright morning star, B&H, BH. That could be taken for something else. I digress. Day star. Wait, sorry. a bright morning star in their hearts, whereby they are roused up and stirred from iniquity and sin, but to other is Hesperus, an evening setting star, whereby they are brought to bed and laid asleep in impiety. Lancelot Andrews, 1657. Yea, Lucifer hath said in his heart, I will ascend into heaven. O Lucifer, how art thou fallen, which art the son of the morning. S-U-N-N-E. You would think, oh, it's talking about the sun there, right? Wrong. Isaiah 14:12. Venus is the morning star. The evening star is the mace bearer to the moon, the morning star, and the morning star to the sun. Mace bearer, by the way, is a noun, a person who carries a mace before men in authority. That's Webster's 1828 definition. Oh yeah, and if you're going to get after capitalization, King James Bible note, nah. Calvin, go away. Sorry, you guys didn't get to see the lovely typing that I did all the way up in here. I'll just scan it real quick for you guys. The King James Bible note in 1611 had lowercase day star. The very next year, capitalized day. No big deal. They didn't use capitalization the same way we do. No big deal. To King James only people, though, it can make a whole big difference. But when it comes to actually digging into this controversy, they just get tied up in knots. If they're trying to double down and they're trying to keep the same old horrible, divisive, wrong argument, then yeah, they end up getting in trouble. The Glossographia by Thomas Blount, 1661. Lucifer, properly the star arising before the morning, a messenger of daylight, the day star, but figuratively, the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. Semicolon, so the secondary definition, an archdevil. Matthew Poole, 1685. He says it pretty clearly. O Lucifer, which properly is a bright and eminent star, which ushers in the sun and the morning, but here is metaphorically taken for the high and mighty king of Babylon. Some understand this place of the devil, to whom indeed it may be mystically applied, but as he is never called by this name, that is Lucifer, in Scripture, so it cannot be literally met of him, but of the king of Babylon. And now people will be like, oh, well, this is where God shifts from addressing a man to addressing a fallen angel. If you have the word Lucifer in there and you're in the modern English mindset and you can only identify Lucifer as the fallen angel, Satan, then you have to think that way. But guess what? It's not true, because words change, because false friends. But guess what? Lucifer isn't a false friend, it's a false fiend. And to be completely honest, Lucifer, the word Lucifer, has no business being in the Bible today. It honestly does not. And if you want to talk about that, reach out to me. I'd be glad to defend that. But of the king of the Babylonians, as it is undeniably evident from the whole context, which clearly speaks of one and the same person and describes him as plainly as words can do it. John Gill has a good quote. Matthew Henry has a good quote. He doesn't talk about Satan at all. He just talks about the king of Babylon. Adam Clark has an excellent quote, which Dan Hafley has brought up several times. Noah Webster's definition, primary definition, the planet Venus, so called for its brightness. Joseph Benson has a good thing going. Albert Barnes, Ellicott's commentary to English readers, the original NIV translator of the Old Testament, one of them, Robert L. Alden. That's the one that Brandon Peterson features on his website. Only a little snippet. He says exactly the same thing as all those other guys. Guys, if you're hanging your confidence on King James only authors that are still trying to convince you that the NIV is somehow wrong or... Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Let me get rid of this instead. People that are trying to convince you that the NIV is wrong and evil and satanic and demonic because of these, let's just say it, these stupid arguments. You can't put confidence in King James only authors because they are extremely biased and things need to stack up in favor of the King James, or at least in favor of their perception of what it's saying. Let's enjoy some actual memes. When are we going to stop talking about the Lucifer Daystar controversy? When are we going to stop beating that horse? We'll stop beating it when it stops looking like it deserves it. Now this one, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. You've got to be able to make memes about yourself too. Doctor, the patient said, this I made recently. Dan Hafley was going, he was getting a cataract surgery, and I made this for him before he went in for his second eye. Doctor, the patient said the Lucifer in the Bible is actually the planet Venus. Nurse, I thought the brain surgery was tomorrow. Oh, and here's Gail. She accuses the Latin Vulgate of saying that Satan is Jesus in 1 Peter 1:19. Stephen Anderson says something similar. When he's all, and he actually knows that Lucifer means the planet Venus, but he goes ahead with it anyways. Ugh. Gail Ripplinger fear-mongering about Lucifer rising in the Vulgate. She doesn't talk about what the Old Latin says. Exactly the same thing in that passage. And she's coming down like Mr. Mission Impossible here. What the Old Latin says in 2 Peter 1:19. Yep. She stops just short of talking about that one in her book, And Awe of Thy Word. Extremely disingenuous. Very, very sad, because Gail knows full well, as does her colleague Alan O'Reilly, that the Old Latin says exactly the same thing as the Latin Vulgate there. But they're never going to tell you that because they're too busy talking up and promoting the Old Latin. They're never going to discuss that. It's very sad indeed. I listened to a sermon by Steven Anderson. I had to listen to it on double speed, or else I probably would have thrown up or turned it off. But it was called Lucifer is the Planet Venus. And he got so many things right, but in the end, it was just not even worth being. It wasn't even worth being right on those few points. And I made this one in reaction to that. When you're watching a Steven Anderson sermon and it's just so bad, you can't stop. And he's just there staring at that one big pile of stuff. Gail accuses the same thing in her Nightline interview that she had so long ago. I made this one in honor of you, Angela. If you're still watching, I don't know. I've got 22 comments on here. a few viewers, but very active apparently in the comments. This is her interview. Is very tired indeed, just like me. Video of Gail Riplinger's interview with Nightline, tired of being paused every few seconds, so viewer can bang head on wall. Yep, this was the first video of Gail's that Angela ever watched, and it ended up changing the next 20 years of her life. There's an article dropping from the Bible Version Conspiracy in the next day or so that'll talk all about that. Regarding that idea that the Latin Vulgate says that Satan is Jesus. In the Latin Vulgate, 2 Peter 1:19 says Lucifer Oriator, which means Lucifer rising. Ooh, how evil. It replaces Jesus, the day star, with Satan. She doesn't actually say those exact words, but for the purposes of the meme. And then, of course, what's his name? Jim Carrey has something to say about that. If you could translate both words, so like if she translated Lucifer Oriator, she would have actually translated it as day star rising, or let the day star arise. If you could translate both words so everyone knows Lucifer is the Latin word for day star, that'd be great. Yep. And that was in reaction to a meme that Kent Hovind shared on his Facebook page. Pardon me. Where he accuses the NIV of, being all satanic and everything. I have the full text of his post. It'll be in the article. But yeah, pretty much does the same thing my friend Mike Holner does, just basically rails against the NIV in complete ignorance as to what's being said. So we'll go over Mike's thing eventually. I would love to have him on here, but I don't know if he wants to engage. I know he's getting tired of the whole controversy, as are many people, and not just this specifically, but I think he's getting tired of the King James controversy as well. He just doesn't want to fight anymore, and I do not blame him whatsoever. But Kent Hovind, remember the scenario with the moldy spider legs? I shared this one to Keith Foskey, for those of you that know who he is. He's the York Calvinist guy on YouTube, and he has a podcast called The Same Thing. I shared this with him, and he thought it was hilarious. Bananas are moldy spider legs. Remember, yeah. If you've ever seen Kent Hovind, you've seen this. You've seen him say this. They lied to me. I didn't eat bananas for nearly 3 years after that, because he believed them, because they wanted his banana. The NIV says Jesus fell from heaven in Isaiah 14:12. Ellipsis marks. It's amazing how good spider legs taste on cereal. This can be taken a few different ways. It can be taken, he is so gullible that after 3 years, he was able to force himself to eat the moldy spider legs, and he's still falling for ridiculous lies like Gail Riplinger's. It can be taken that way. Or it can be taken, oh, that's right, I do believe ridiculous lies. Okay, yeah, wow, those are moldy spider legs, aren't they? Wow, those moldy things. They taste pretty good. Kent. And he knows, just to be completely honest, he knows that much about the Bible version controversy. Absolutely nothing. And I was promoting what he said about this stuff. He knows nothing about it whatsoever. And what he has gleaned by barely listening to Gail Riplinger has just come through in horrible distortions. Like, oh yeah, in 1611 they got all the Bibles across the world together, and they all said the same thing, except one said like Peter and the other one said Pedro and stuff like that. They were all the same until, of course, Westcott and Hort showed up. Just so irresponsible and foolish on these things. Absolutely ridiculous. Here's a little love letter to myself. 10 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever. I would have never gone to a church that didn't exclusively use the King James Bible because I believed that the NIV said that Satan was Jesus too. I believed the big fat fuzzy lie. Man sad, and this is where I'm kind of aping the Babylon Bee meme style. Man sad he can't go to heaven because he can't attend places of worship that don't exclusively use the King James Bible. I shared this with Mark Wharton, and he's just like, so true. And of course he can relate because he used to be King James only, so. Let's see. This was absolutely disgusting. Jack Hyles, the guy that was in an adulterous relationship with his deacon's wife, and yeah, apparently wasn't sorry about it and offered the deacon to have another woman in the church sleep with him if he wanted one. And he said, he was like, oh yeah, it's just pick one from the membership or what have you. I can make him do whatever I want. Mind control. I wonder how influential MK Ultra was behind Jack Hyles. This is not satire. This is literally what he said. You can look it up on YouTube. It's in a sermon called Shame on Us. How fitting. In the sermon entitled Shame on Us, Pastor Jack Hyles announces, new enemies of Jesus are Christians saved by reading anything but the King James Version. So if your Bible doesn't match exactly, like if you have the Geneva Bible, say, and things that are different aren't the same. If you were saved a few hundred years ago and all you had was a Geneva Bible, you probably wouldn't be saved. You would be an enemy of Christ because that's corruptible seed. Jack Hyles could preach a sermon, but he could also be very wrong and very destructive. Along those lines, this was made in honor of Joey Faust in his book, In All Thy Word, or not In All Thy Word, The Word God Will Keep It. His conspiracy about Manly P. Hall and the statement that he made about Occidentals wanting to get out an accurate translation of the Bible, but it's so hard for us to conquer our cherished traditions because people only want the King James. Report. KJV-only apologists to propose exclusive KJV use be globally enforced to prevent New World Order. Thou wilt use one Bible and thou wilt be happy. Yep, that's pretty much it. And Joey Faust and David Daniels sing exactly the same tune on this one. And I think that, honestly, and I'm friends with both of them, and guys, please don't take this the wrong way. I love you both to death, but the problem is I think that when you guys read Manly P. Hall's article, it is the best evidence that neither of you can read. Because he didn't say that he was involved in a conspiracy to change and replace the King James Bible. He didn't say that in any way, shape, or form. That was construed out of your desire to have a New World Order conspiracy against your favorite translation, and it is not the case. But it has been spread around the internet, and it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be, it needs to basically be refuted because it's wrong, and it's hurtful. And you're damaging people's trust for each other, for people that make Bibles, for people that use anything but the King James Bible, you're reinforcing a harmful, toxic mindset, and it's got to stop. And somebody's got to stand up about it. But as far as I'm aware, there's only one person who is calling you out on this one, and that's this guy that's talking to you right now. Along those lines, or no, should we save this? Let's hit it. I've got a few more memes, and then we'll be done. I'll probably look at your guys' comments as well. Wow, 26 of them. Morpheus quickly switches red pill for Angela Benko's The Myth of New Age Bible Versions when Tom accuses modern Bibles are New Age perversions. We'll talk about that book in just a little bit here. Truth is Christ video upload rocks Great Britain with another record-setting earthquake as 54 translators roll over in their graves. Yep, and that would be the video too. Yep, I know. And Brandon, also, love you in the Lord. Love you as a friend, dude. But the problem is that video about Lucifer and so many of your other arguments about the King James Bible being inspired because numbers. It might be interesting, but it's not going to help. It's going to maybe reinforce some King James onlyism. But what are we supposed to do now? The King James Bible is never to be changed because it has these so-called codes in them or something. Does that mean that we have to hold on to this translation for the next 3,000 years, even when the English language has passed out of use? Or at least it sounds much different from how it does today. I mean, even if you take English from King James's time, listen to the reading that was done of the demonology. You can barely understand what King James is saying when it's being read in its original English flavor. We can't take much more of this bloody Tommy rot. The banner's a little bit illegible, I will admit, but it's actually worse on my laptop because the red is more washed out. On my phone, it looks better. It's a deeper red. Better screen on my phone. And I still have to write all these articles, so there's no article behind this yet. I guess technically there would be one behind a few others, but a lot of articles to write. Oh, and I want to talk to this guy too. Jonathan Burris, pastor fired after scoring pathetic 99% on standardized KJV-only test. Because he said that question 100 is all of the above. Circle the right translation. Lucifer, Morning Star, Planet Venus. All of the above. That got him fired. Because he said that Lucifer and Morning Star and Day Star, they're not wrong. None of them. And where the modern versions say Son of the Gods and the King James Bible says Son of God, the NIV isn't wrong. Him saying those two things lost him his job, from what he says. And I'm looking forward to talking to him, I believe, sometime next week. I've got to share it. Babylon Bee meme. I can totally relate. This is me and my wife. Wife's love language is sending YouTube, Instagram reels you don't watch. Yep. That's about it. Oh, and we're coming up into St. Patrick's Day. So pretty soon we're going to have to talk about this again. Because we do this yearly around St. Patrick's Day because there's triquetras all over the place. And there is so much misinformation about this whole symbol. How a KJV-only guy avoids the truth about the NKJV logo. Yep, because it is not a 666 symbol. It is not the devil's thing. It is not a witchcraft symbol. It is used that way, but it's used other ways too, just as legitimately. And if you take it all the way back, it is a symbol for family and brotherhood. And that is all. And that would be one reason why the Brotherhood of the Snake, or what have you, would have adopted it as a symbol. And also why Christians would adopt it as a symbol for the Godhead, or the Holy Family, or what have you. And by the way, I learned something interesting about Lucifer. Catholics will call Mary Lucifer. Why? Because she bore the light of the world for 9 months. That's why they call Mary Lucifer, because she was the bearer of light. Fascinating. It's too tiny. I'm gonna have to wait for it to come up. Yep. Okay. Modern Bible versions replace KJV's Lucifer with Daystar. Modern translators obviously worship Satan secretly. Now that's something that people like Gail Ripplinger, Joey Faust, people like that would say. The KJV translators and King James himself said Lucifer is the planet Venus, the day star. Did they secretly worship Satan too? And of course, people like Bible Highlighter will try to get around that and say, oh, well, the day star actually means the sun, because they need it to be something different because of that. It's very interesting and very sad, and they tie themselves all up in knots just because they can't acknowledge the truth, or they will lose their argument on this one. It's a destructive argument. It's convinced so many King James only people to become King James only in the first place. It has led to a destructive and toxic mindset in hundreds of thousands of people across the English-speaking world, and the lie needs to stop. Do I defend Gail Ripplinger? Why, yes, I do. This was me 10 years ago. Moments later. Have I checked any of her research for myself? Does reading her book Blind Guides count? Yeah. When I started fact-checking Gail, it started falling apart rapidly. Almost everything she says in chapter 40 of her book is an absolute falsehood. And just about everything she says about the word Lucifer is built upon a misconception, and it has led her to double down on falsehoods. There's a lady that I know that can attest to all that. Seven years to write a stupid book. 20 years to write a book showing how stupid it is. It ain't much, but it's honest work. Yeah. Surely. And for some of my friends, one in particular, he had a congregant who came to him, and she'd been reading a book that was blowing the lid off of modern versions. And, Pastor, how can you be reading these evil Bibles? Pastor, are you an evil person? You know, not necessarily those words per se. I don't want to misconstrue the situation. But basically, that's what was happening. These evil Westcott and Hort people, I can't believe that you'd be promoting the work of these evil Satanists. So for the pastors out there, like the pastor up the street here, that have lost people that hate his guts just because he doesn't use exclusively the King James Bible, he uses Satan's Bibles. Satan, don't you know that Satan took his name out of there and put Jesus' name in place of it? How could you use such an evil, blasphemous Bible, right? So much hate based on ignorance and a nothing burger, portraying itself as sound biblical evidence. And are you going to doubt the Bible, or are you going to believe the Bible like I do? So a pastor can take the book that's coming out, that's been 20 years in the making. I've been reading an interesting book. Sorry, you've been reading lies. I'm greatly looking forward to seeing Angela Banco's book come out. It's coming soon. It's called The Myth of New Age Bible Versions: How False Warnings Betrayed a Generation of Bible-Believing Christians. There's going to be an article coming out soon as well called 20 Years Unmasking New Age Bible Versions. One Believer's Stand for Honesty. And it's going to go a long ways to show you guys just how disingenuous Gail was and is, and the harm that she is bringing to churches across America. And when you read that article, you might just see this little graphic right here. Gail accuses the New American Standard Bible and most other modern translations of removing the words on the to make people think that all they have to do is be steadfast and they'll be okay. They steadfastly think about the mantra. New Age mysticism creeping into the Bible because they didn't add 2 words to the Hebrew text, on and the. The verses are saying the same thing. But just because the King James translators added those 2 words, it doesn't mean that you have to put them in every Bible moving forward. The Wycliffe Bible didn't. The Geneva Bible didn't. The Great Bible didn't. The Bishop's Bible didn't. Why aren't those being accused of promoting New Age mysticism? Well, they don't, because they don't factor in, because we're busy making arguments about the New American Standard and how it's promoting the New Age now. And we're not talking about all those other Bibles. Well, they are very significant. And Angela's article is going to be going into all of that pretty soon. In case you're wondering, this is what the back of the book looks like at this point in time. We are planning, or I am planning, Angela is planning, we are planning together in this book. Some of my stuff will be featured in there, some of my research. It'll be an interesting time. I'm looking forward to contributing to her work. I am a Johnny-come-lately, but I have dug deep on a couple of subjects that Angela has been researching a little bit, but she does want my input on. Namely, the Lucifer controversy, I believe, will be one thing, and then the other thing will be the final Bible and the Hermas and Barnabas accusations that Gail makes. So we look forward to making our contribution to that work of hers. So yeah, in case you guys are wanting to check out our website, a cool little new feature that I learned here this evening. If you want to go to the BibleVersionConspiracy.com, you can scan that little QR code right up there, and it'll take you there. And if you want to join us on a deeper level as a co-conspirator, check out, I believe it would be this link. Yeah, I think it's changed. Check out that link up there, and that'll take you over to our membership page where you guys can sign up to become a co-conspirator. $7 a month, not going to break the bank, but every little bit helps us make this channel a reality, helps us keep the lights on, helps us pay our subscriptions that we need to be able to make the graphics, be able to do this live stream. This takes several subscriptions just doing this, as far as channel art, as far as StreamYard. This microphone, part of it, I'm not sure how much of it, but part of it comes from you guys. The thing that I have holding up my phone right now, part of it comes from you guys. You guys have been a great support to us over the years, and I am in your debt. Let's take a look at these comments. They should show up. Let's see now. Is it going to scroll with me? It's just going to show the most recent ones, isn't it? Yeah. Whatever. I'll probably just turn that off now. Elizabeth says, hi, brother. Unmuted the whole time. What's up, Joseph from Life? Sounds fine to me. Okay, I'm back. Meme. An object kept as a reminder or souvenir of a person or event. I'm not sure how it would be used modernly, but you can purchase a memento of your visit. Interesting. Meme. An element of a culture, and this is probably what I'm more familiar with. An element of a culture or system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation, a humorous image, video, or piece of text, etc. That is copied often with slight variation and spread rapidly by internet users. Elizabeth left a comment about John MacArthur. I am not terribly familiar with his work. I am a little bit familiar with it from my days listening to WJIV before I became a King James only person, but John MacArthur teaches falsely when it comes to the mark of the beast. I don't know. He says Christians can take the mark of the beast and repent, if there's even any Christians here. I don't know of it, since there's no unforgivable sin except for the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. He led many strolls astray with that one. I'm not sure if that is what he teaches. I would probably disagree with him on that, but not sure. I believe he's a Calvinist, and Leif says that Calvin was a reprobate. I would love to see evidence of that. A lot of people will say that he wasn't a Christian because he doesn't have a specific conversion experience in his writings. But it sounds to me like he trusted on Christ to save his soul from hell. And how much more do you have than that? Elizabeth. Lucifer, which she, of course, is using synonymously with Satan, wants to be like Christ because obviously the planet Venus is not wanting to be like Christ. So I imagine calling him the same name as the Lord would be striking to me. He's a mimicker God, but he can't be God. Well, that is true, but the thing is that it's talking about the fallen king of Babylon in that passage, not Satan. Okay, let me see if I can get this up here too. Come on. There it goes. I've heard many say the ESV was supposedly made. What? The ESV was supposedly made before the King James Version. Is that true? No, I think you might have misheard that one. Nobody, I don't think, would ever say that the English Standard Version came before the King James. The English Standard Version was published in at least the last 30 years. I mean, for sure and for certain. King James Bible's like 400 years old. There's no way. Because they have whole passages missing out of the ESV, same as the NIV in some words. Okay, here's what they're probably saying. That the text underlying the ESV is older than the King James Bible. The translation itself was made recently. The King James Bible was based on more recent manuscripts. The ESV is a recent translation based on older manuscripts. And generally speaking, older manuscripts don't include a lot of the verses that the King James Bible does. My favorite, all-time favorite example is Revelation 21. No. Yeah, Revelation 21:24. It says that the nations of them which are saved will walk by the light of it, and that's the light of the New Jerusalem. Of them which are saved in that passage does not belong in the Bible whatsoever. It was accidentally added by Erasmus. He had one copy of Revelation, which he drew from, which is one reason why his last 6 verses are pretty bizarre, and have no Greek authority because he back translated those from Latin. A lot of the words there are, and he did a decent job, but whatever. Another subject for another time. Those 5 words in English are 2 words in Greek, of them which are saved. And those words were added by a guy that wrote a commentary back in the 600s AD, around 611, actually. So 1,000 years before the King James Bible. Or not, 1,000 years? Yeah, about. So in the 600s AD, there was a guy named Andrew of Caesarea that wrote a commentary, and the way they would write commentaries back then is they would write their commentary, and they'd write the passage, and then they'd write their commentary on that passage, and it was just one big line of text and no distinguishing between what they said and the passage itself. Very hard to read. So eventually, they would either put the commentary in red or a different color, or they would put the commentary in the margin. There's a slight controversy as to which manuscript Erasmus actually used, but they're pretty much 100% certain that it was the one that he borrowed from one of his friends. And in this manuscript, they accidentally, if I remember correctly, they accidentally left those 5 words in the verse in the text instead of moving them to the margin with the rest. So nothing except for some of Andrew's commentary, like other manuscripts of Andrew's commentary where this comment is left in the text. No Greek manuscript of Revelation, which there's hardly any of those because the Eastern Orthodox Church didn't accept it. Nothing in Latin, nothing in any other ancient language, no translation, not even the Wycliffe Bible has of them which are saved. Textus Receptus comes along, of them which are saved, makes it into that verse, and now it's in the King James Bible. Has no business being there whatsoever. There's no evidence for it. We know exactly how it got there. It doesn't belong there. Those 5 words can be safely disregarded because they're not original. They don't affect the doctrine of the passage. They don't do anything. They're not doctrinally significant. They're just 5 words that aren't needed. They're explanatory, and they were accidentally left in the text. Oh, but you're not supposed to take away from you're not supposed to add to it either. Erasmus did it on accident. King James only people are going to be dogmatic that those 5 words need to remain in the Bible because they're inspired, because they're in the King James Bible. They were in nothing before Erasmus made a simple mistake or followed a manuscript that made a simple mistake. So that's the end of that. So a Bible that is based on an older text than Erasmus's won't have those 5 words in there. If it's based on Erasmus's text, which was based on later 9th, 10th, 11th century manuscripts, if it's based on those ones, a lot of the time they're going to have errors that have built up over time. The ESV tries to follow a text that goes to older sources, and like for instance, in Eusebius's day, 300-400s, it was well known that the pericope adultery with the woman caught in adultery, it was well known that that passage was not originally in John or Luke or whichever one it's in. I forget. It wasn't originally in there. It wasn't originally penned by the author of that gospel. It probably happened, but it wasn't originally in the gospel that it's found in. And that was common knowledge. Let's see. Angela Benko. Yep, grandstanding. PJ James made a few comments. McElroy blocked me a long time ago after many exchanges on Facebook. I haven't actually exchanged with him that often on Facebook. I should maybe try reaching out to him at some point. And since I'm friends with David Daniels, maybe I might be able to talk to him at some point. We'll see. Yep, I have tons of content on my TikTok rebuking the Lucifer concept. Nice. I am not on TikTok, unfortunately. Probably better that way, but maybe at some point. Yep, that footnote. Thanks for tuning in, PJ. That's nice of you to stop in. You might have left some more comments. I'm not at the bottom yet. If you guys have any specific questions, I see there's still 5 of you. It is, what time is it anyways? 11:20, not bad. And of course, some of you are in time zones where it's earlier. Angela says, if he wants to make Lucifer a proper name, then the king of Babylon's name was Lucifer. He's scrapping for excuses. Yep. And Hillel is a proper name. Lucifer is a proper name. It's a proper name for a little glowing dot right about there. It's called the planet Venus. And Steven Anderson and Bible Highlighter and all these other guys can pretend that it means the sun till the cows come home. Or that day star means the sun. And they're still going to provide no evidence for it, just like they always have. Since Isaiah 14 is about the king of Babylon, not Satan, Charles Evans shares a couple of emojis, one with sunglasses. I'm not going to load those right now just because they are a little speed bump, I guess, for an emoji. So Isaiah 14:12 has become a proof text, and they can't let it go. Yep. Well, if it's not talking about Satan falling out of heaven, then we don't have a biography of the devil in the Bible. You know, the Bible pretty much says precious little about Satan as it is. Why do you need to force a passage to say something that it doesn't, just to make yourself happy? Excuse me. Just to make yourself happy. Oh, I'm happier when there's a whole passage about Satan falling out of the sky. Dad, like Marv Harry, yeah, like Harry with his nose bent over because the tool case fell down the stairs in Home Alone. That was the sound of the planet Venus falling out of the sky. In high school Bible class, I had to memorize Isaiah 14:12-20, and our teacher taught us it was the fall of Satan. It shows how solid this tradition is in the church. Each generation is taught it and teaches it to the next generation, is what you say in your next comment. My dad was raised Baptist also and was taught it. Laughy face, laughy face, laughy face. Love Gale's scowl in that one, LOL. Hiles equals Jim Jones, question mark. And I'm just like, probably they both use mind control. And it makes me wonder if Jack Hiles was one of these guys that actually did have what they call the keys to the kingdom in Kathy O'Brien's book, The Transformation of America. Because if he did, then yes, he could draw from probably a multitude of women in his church that had gone through intensive, honestly, torture programming. And he could snap his fingers, say the right words, and they would literally willingly do anything he wanted them to. If that was the case. Makes me think. You will eat the bugs and use only the KJV, and you will be happy. I've got to show that just for the spelling. Oh, I love it. I love the phonetic spelling. Is that what it's called? Like spelling how it sounds. I love it. Yep, you guys can see it. Those KJV only missionaries who translate the KJV into other languages, do they keep Lucifer in Isaiah 14:12? Yes, they do. From what I'm seeing, it looks like King James only, and especially American or Baptist translators, they will, modern English translators, when they're going to another country and they see a translation that doesn't have a distinct word for Lucifer in that passage, they will try to make it so that it is distinct and so that it can be interpreted as Satan, only as Satan. And they try to do that to bring clarity. And that's one of the things that has really kind of messed them up in Romania, apparently. There's a lot of confusion because we're trying to introduce our English culture into this Eastern European culture, and the same ideas about the fall of Lucifer and stuff just don't track. And they've got hymns and poems and stuff like this that talk about the morning star Lucifer and Christ is Lucifer, and they have all these beautiful songs and foundational poetry, and it's just amazing. We'll talk about some of that in one of the footnotes that we're writing for the Lucifer paper. Josh Alvarez, hang on a second. Josh Alvarez, still King James only, I'm sure. Yep, still King James only. Are you still flat Earth, concave Earth, pear-shaped Earth, convex Earth? What are you now? And there's also a few other things like with the Trinity and stuff that we could probably talk about, but that's fine. We're not talking about that right now. While I don't fully agree with you, with either you or Ripplinger on this, I do appreciate you shedding light on some facts about Lucifer people often miss. Oh, there are so many. Ugh. If you want to talk about this more, that would be great. And if you have things that you don't fully agree with me on, I would love to get those straightened out if they're ones that I'm wrong on. And if there's something that I'm just like, no, actually, this is the case, I would love to also be able to defend it in conversation with you. So if you want to reach out to me, maybe we could talk sometime. Maybe tomorrow. But yeah, we'll see. Are you no longer KJV only? Yep. As of last year, I'm not King James only anymore. I can't be in good conscience. I don't ask to start a fight, just generally curious. Yeah, no. I realize that. I appreciate that, Josh. But yeah, if you wanted to talk about it more with me, that would not be a problem. Not be a problem at all. Has been a long, long time since we have talked. And I also think that King James onlyism was started by the Illuminati to destroy Christianity. More or less, yeah. But anyways, we'll talk about that at some point. Imagine a Chinese person reading it and seeing Lucifer in the translation and wondering, what is that? That's not Chinese. I think that they try to find an equivalent in their language, or they try to make it Lucifer with like a different spelling or something else like this. But they do. I don't think that they. I think they do try to bring the Latin word in there. I don't know. I would have to double check other languages that I'm not familiar with to try to figure that out, or talk to people that know something about these languages. So, but yeah, there's a lot of weird nonsense going on that does not need to be happening. Josh again. Geocentric round Earth. Okay. So you believe that the Earth is the center, just for the people that aren't familiar with the biblical cosmology stuff. So you would probably be along the lines of someone like Jardis Bow, biblical astronomer guy. Other than that, still a total heretic on the Trinity, LOL. But yeah, no ill will intended. I appreciate that. And we can probably talk a little bit more about the Trinity too, if you want to. I would also be interested to hear your thoughts on that book that I recommended to you a while ago called Cults in the Trinity by Ken Johnson. Geocentric round Earth. So if you're geocentric, I would like to know, especially if you believe in a small sun. That would be interesting to hear. A flat Earth certainly does not work, for reasons that we've talked about, the 24-hour sun in Antarctica being one of the main ones, and also the fact that the sun is about the same size there as it is there as it is there. That proves that it's enormous and far away. If it was close and small, it would be about 6 times bigger by the time it got here and about 6 times smaller by the time it sets. So, but yeah, we can talk more about things. Next comment. Looks like we're just about through. It loaded up there. It hasn't loaded here. I just don't like going like this because it's awkward. There we go. It loaded. And yeah, we can talk. Yeah, that'd be cool. Reach out to me on Messenger or what have you. If you're suffering from a painful throat, we can wait until after that. But you can message me if you want. Yeah, absolutely. I can reach out to you. Yeah, we'll just have to set up a time to chat and we can do that. Okay. One more comment. If you guys have any questions at all, drop one down there. Easy peasy. Josh is watching on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, you can comment there. I'll see it. If you comment on YouTube, I'll see it. If I don't see it, if I don't mention it, comment on the YouTube video after the fact, or you can reach out to BibleVersionConspiracy.com. On the contact page, that'll email me, or you can email me directly. There we go. With science topics like geo, I admit I'm not that great a scientist. That's fine. So I usually try to defer to the mainstream as much as possible, e.g., no small sun. Okay. I'm kind of interested in trying to understand how you could have geocentricity without a small sun. So is an enormous sun going around the Earth? That's really, really difficult to picture. Especially with all the planets that would have to be on the other side of the sun that are still visible somehow. It'll be interesting to hear your views on that. It was interesting to hear your ideas about us all living inside of a ball. Way back when we still had the goats in the dining room. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah, looks like we got to the end of our comments. Whew. It was a long stream, longer than I thought it would be. Really, a much more focused video would be more than adequate to probably a 15-minute video at the most would be adequate for dealing with those infographics. But there's a lot of things to hit, and if you have not prepared for this, like I have not prepared for this at all, I haven't prepared for this stream specifically. I've got a lot of information. I haven't distilled it down to a video script or what have you at this point. I should do that though. Yeah. And since it is almost midnight, I'll probably just end the stream. I probably won't do an official after stream right now. 8 viewers. Wow, how come at 2.5 hours, how come we get 8? If you guys are interested in this stream and lots and lots of stuff gone into today. The recording should be up online, viewable, probably by tomorrow morning, I would say at the latest. So yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to read your Bible no matter what translation it is. Like the devil's after it, because he's after. I would say with confidence right now that he is after modern translations. He doesn't want people to have the Bible in a language that they speak and understand. King James translation is slipping into unintelligibility. What does by and by mean? After a while? Well, guess what it meant in 1611? It meant right now, immediately, without delay. Words change meanings. Lucifer, great example. Noah Webster, primary definition. Lucifer means planet Venus. Oh yeah, the passage is talking about Satan. He's being compared to Lucifer, the planet Venus. King James recognized that. Other people didn't see Satan in there at all. Today, our language is forcing us to see Satan and Satan only in those verses. It's sad. It's incorrect. It's hurtful. It's harmful. It's causing division. Lucifer is doing more damage by making King James only people stick to that translation than he is by making a parallel. Or maybe he's using both. Because remember, your cults play off of that same confusion. Oh, modern translations are playing into the hands of the cults by translating it accurately? No. What's playing into the hands of the cults, I would argue, is holding on to a secondary interpretation, a figurative, mystical interpretation that never should have been made anyways. It was made by Tertullian. It was made by Origen. And it's come through Christianity, through the Dark Ages, It's still there today. But does it need to be? Does Satan need to be Lucifer in Isaiah 14:12? Not at all. Certainly isn't Jesus. Certainly isn't Satan. It's talking about a king of Babylon that's dead and his bones are probably powder right now. And he was making himself out to be something he wasn't. He was making himself out, and they were comparing him to the planet Venus falling out of the sky. And that can be backed up and defended to the hilt. I appreciate you guys tuning into this stream. If you have any questions after this, please reach out to me. If you guys want to know about all the opposition that I get when I talk about these things, I'd be glad to let you in on some of it if you want. Stay tuned, like I said, for Angela's article, which is coming out. That'll be probably tomorrow. And look for our article, Lucifer Rising, the ultimate King James only cover-up, which should be coming out sometime in the next couple of months, depending on how much deeper down the rabbit hole I decide to go for the time being. We shall see. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining me for the stream. We'll catch you all later. And don't forget to read your Bible like the devil's after it. Because he truly is, and there truly is a Bible version conspiracy. Have a good night.